Hey everybody, it's Boardman21 and today's build is going to be the two-handed Werebear with 100% uptime, 100% crit, and a lot of people were asking for this because it has more damage, so they wanted to see a two-handed viable option. We still tried to keep as much tankiness as possible, but we're doing about 3 to 4 times as much damage as our one-hander was doing. We did sacrifice a little bit of damage for attack speed and to make sure that we still had 100% crit so that you can stay 100% uptime in the build. Some other things to note that will really help you with damage on this build: we are running the solo companion, which will give you more damage as long as it's alive. It's okay for it to go down, but if it disappears, you'll have to get out of Werebear form to resummon it, and you lose all the perks of having the solo companion once it disappears. On top of that, we're running the bear with retaliation, so trying to get the bear to sit exactly where you sit so he takes as much damage as possible and will retaliate as much as possible. We'll put as many minion poison stacks on the enemy and really help out with the damage. And with that, let's go ahead and get into the skills. Alright, for skills we are running Ice Thorns, Swipe, Entangling Roots, Summon Bear, and Werebear form. For Ice Thorns we are using it as an on-hit proc, so we have 3 points in Dagger Thorns, 2 points in Bramble Armor, and 4 points in Spell Thorns, 1 point in Anemophily, 1 point in Thorn Shield, 4 points in Bulb Shield for that recast chance, and 5 points in Bark Shield for as much armor and protection as we can get. For Swipe, we're running it for attack speed and damage. We have 1 point in Way of the Hunt, 3 points in Wingarian Reach, 2 points in Cooling. You'll really enjoy that 14% kill threshold. 4 points in Battle Howl, 1 point in Aspect of the Panther, 2 points in Frenzy, 3 points in Feline Hunter, and 4 points in Apex Predator for that 100% global critical multiplier, which is huge since we are a 100% crit build. For Entangling Roots, we are using this for maximum duration, for healing, and for mana back. 5 points in Nourish for the healing, 1 point in Bountiful Harvest, and 1 point in Mana Bloom for the mana back. This skill lasts about 5 seconds. With the duration, you get about 9 seconds out of it. It costs 5 mana in Werebear form to cast, and you get 9 mana back. So each time you cast it, you will be positive 4 mana. We have 1 point in Reclamation, 5 points in Lasting Briar, 1 point in Poison Ground. This one, 1 point you can put anywhere. You could put it into Entangling Roots damage. You could put it into multi-patch and try and stay in 2 patches at once. A little bit more difficult. You could put it into Bleed Chance. You could put it into your Bear's Bleed Chance. There's a lot of options for that last little point. I will tell you, mana efficiency is completely useless. Don't think this saves you any mana. We have 3 points in Groove Master for area and 3 points in Imbued Sap for this increased ally damage of 90%. You would think that's just for the bear, but it actually increases your damage as well. So this is a 90% damage boost. And always having roots up will give you that 90%. For Summon Bear, we're using him as a retaliatory Thorn Bleed build. So we have 3 points in Thick Hide, 1 point in Retaliatory Thorns. To make it where he takes 75 damage, he will retaliate with Ice Thorns. That Ice Thorns then has 100% to bleed with 4 points in Tearing Thorns. 2 points in Wing Thorns will allow it to go 50% farther. We have 1 point in Lacerating Claws, 1 point in Thorn Bear to reduce that retaliation threshold from 75 damage down to 30 damage, so he will fire it off way more often. 2 points in Barbed Thorns, 1 point in Ursine Endurance. This is important to give Briar Thorns a cooldown so that he won't cast from a distance, and that way he'll actually get in the fight to get hit more to fire off the retaliatory Thorns. And 5 points in Nightshade Bear to give him that 100% poison, so every time he takes 30 damage, he will fire the Thorns. Each Thorn has a 100% chance to not only poison, but also a 100% chance to bleed. So it's a very damage over time based minion, which will really help with your damage, especially if he sits on any kind of damage over time. If he gets on poison, a Void Spike, and Death Screech, anything that does a lot of hits or is damage over time will just fire it off like crazy and usually kill just about anything that's around it. And then for Werebear form, we're going to go into a little bit more detail on this one. There's always a lot of questions about it. A lot of people ask how you sustain the mana with Werebear, and almost all of it is done through this skill itself. So if you put 3 points in Rip and Tear, this not only gives you more damage and critical strike chance, but the 1 point in Enervating Blow means that swipe critical strikes refund the mana cost. So by putting this point here and being a 100% crit build, you will get all of your mana back from using swipe as long as you hit the enemy. If the enemy has dodge, it does not count as a hit, and you will lose the mana for that one, which the cost is 2 mana. The other thing is, if you hit multiple enemies and crit multiple enemies, not sure if it's a bug or not, but you actually get more mana back than just the 2 mana that it costs. Usually you'll get like 3 or 4. So you can actually leech mana in a way to have your mana go up. Now the other thing we have is 1 point in Thick Skin, 2 points in Ironhide, and then this 1 point in Woodland Bear. This is another way to get mana. Whenever you cast War, you will also cast Entangling Roots. And Roots, as we have it set up, will give you mana back. It'll give you 9 mana for every time you cast it, as long as you stay in its range. Now, you would get all worried if you see that bottom part that says War mana cost now goes up by 15, which would normally put you at about a 25 mana cost. But you'll see that our War only costs 5 mana. And we get back 9 mana with War. So you're getting back 4 extra mana every time you actually use it, as long as you stay in it the whole time. The reason that that cost is so cheap is down to this left side. We have 2 points in Pummel, 2 points in Food for Thought, and 1 point in Ursane Wisdom. This gives us 300% global mana efficiency, which reduces the cost of all your skills basically to their minimum limits. This also gets rid of any health regen you have, so do not build a health regen build unless you don't plan on using roots in this way. The other thing is, you will also revert to human form if at any time you fall down to 30% life. So be sure to make sure you're watching out. If you take a really hard hit and your life drops, you could be back in human form, and you'll be a lot less safe in that. You'll want to run around until you can get back into Werebear form. For defenses, we have 5 points in Ursane Heart for the armor and protection's flat base and increased base, and we have 1 point in Wizened Claws for that extra melee damage. For passives, now I wanted to also explain passives a bit because people get really confused. So this 20 points is not how many points are in it. It's actually the amount of lines that you have gone up to a maximum of 20. Any points you put in above 20, you can't actually go above this line, and therefore they don't count. We do have 21 points in here. Now, for the class that you master, and this is why it gets weird, for the class that you master, it does count how many points that you go in. There are only 50 lines, and this is at 61. However, in the 2 mastered classes that are 2 masteries that you haven't mastered, it caps out at 25. So even though this says 25, it's only because you can only hit the 25 point line. We actually have 32 points in here. Or 31, I don't remember, I'll count them up later, but point is, so it's a bit confusing to a lot of people. These numbers do not reflect the number of points in here, only the one you're mastered, and it will actually reflect the amount of points that is actually in that. With that being said, let's go ahead and go over them. 20 points in Primalist. We have 7 points in Natural Attunement, 1 point in Primal Strength, 1 point in Hunter's Restoration, 6 points in Survival of the Pack, 5 points in Tempestborn, and 1 point in Ancient Call. In Beastmaster, we have 5 points in Savagery, 6 points in Lamprey Teeth, 1 point in Ambush, 1 point in Artist's Loyalty, 4 points in Boarheart, 5 points in Porcine Constitution, 5 points in Primal Strength, and 5 points in Axe and Claw. For Druid are 61 points. We have 5 points in Soul Attendant, 1 point in Healing Totems, 5 points in Spirit Claws, 8 points in Blossoming Vines, 5 points in Strengthened Bond, 8 points in Ferocity, 5 points in Defense of the Heart, 5 points in Forest Fervor, 5 points in Natural Duality, and 8 points in Soothing Slaughter. This one's pretty huge because not only it gives you 3 great buffs all in one. Increased healing effectiveness, so roots will heal you more, increased critical strike chance to help you with that 100% crit, and 8 health on every hit you do because every hit will be a crit. And for items, so like we said, we did switch over to a 2-handed weapon in this build. We went with attack speed, added melee critical strike chance, and all attributes. This weapon is not 100%. Obviously you would like +5 all attributes, and instead of the 63% increased stun chance, I would go with the resistance of your choice that you are the weakest in. With that being said, for the other items, the jewelry, we are still running the set elemental. All the other stats are just protections and critical strike avoidance. In this build, we are running 100% critical strike avoidance and 100% glancing blow. Everything else we have, you'll see there's no health regen. It's just protections, crit strike, glancing blow, and vitality. And for idols, we have 2 idols that increase our physical strength, or physical damage, and 2 idols for healing effectiveness. These are our resistances. Notice we have not done a critical strike, so they actually get 125% higher than this, but just sitting here in place, we're sitting at 81% elementals, 80% armor, 76 to 79% void necrotic poison. We have 110% glancing blow, we have 112% critical strike avoidance. So as long as we're healing ourselves, we just don't take a whole lot of damage. It's basically impossible to get one shot. It is still possible to die if you stand on damage over time. It does help that you're in roots and that's constantly healing you, but I would try and stay out of the damage over time and try and charge out of it, and try and keep your bear out of it because they will probably go down. Although I do recommend at the same time leaving your bear in damage over time, because it will kill anything around it while it's in it, because it will fire off so many poison and bleed stacks of retaliation ice thorns. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and leave you with some gameplay.